A Royal Naval Air Service and Royal Air Force pilot and combat leader in the First World War, Roy Brown is inextricably linked to the demise of Manfred von Richthofen, Germany's highest-scoring fighter pilot. Afterwards, Brown established General Airways Limited, operating through the 1930s in Ontario, Quebec, and Manitoba. Born in Carleton Place, Ontario on December 23, 1893, to his parents Mary and Morton, Arthur Roy Brown had 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and was known by his middle name, Roy. He was born at home, in a house that remains standing today, and began his education by attending public schools in his hometown of Carleton Place, and was active in sports with local teams, playing hockey on the team called the Independents, and as a baseball player, Roy proved his worth by playing on the Carleton Place men's baseball team in 1912. In 1913, Roy moved to Edmonton, where he stayed with his uncle, William Brown, and his wife Blanche, while attending Victoria High School for 2 years, where he was again active in sports, serving as captain of the school's basketball team. While attending Victoria High School, Roy met Wilfred Wap May. The names of the 2 young men were destined to be linked from the time of the First World War. Returning home to Carleton Place, Roy expressed a desire to enlist for the war and applied for the Royal Naval Air Service. And to qualify as a pilot before enlisting, he attended the Wright School of Aviation in Dayton, Ohio, earning his pilot certificate from the Aero Club of America. 2 days later, he was enrolled in the Royal Naval Air Service, and on the SS Finland, he sailed for England on December 2, 1915. As a probationary flight sublieutenant, he began training at the RNAS station Chingford, near London, and continued his training by flying the BE-2C aircraft of the Royal Aircraft Factory. After earning his Royal Naval Air Service pilot certificate and training at East Church Gunnery School, in March 1917, Roy was assigned to active service and appointed to No. 9 Naval Squadron in France at Saint-Paul-sur-Mer, near Dunkirk on the French coast, and was soon flying the Sopwith Pup in combat with the Royal Naval Air Service. On July 17, 1917, while flying a Sopwith Pup, similar to this replica at the Canada Aviation and Space Museum, Roy scored his first victory as a combat pilot, downing an Albatros D-3, a superior German aircraft, and he was promoted to acting flight lieutenant. In August 1917, Roy Brown began flying the Sopwith Camel, armed with its twin machine guns, and soon scored his second victory. And assigned to combat a flight in his squadron, he shot down 3 more aircraft in quick succession, thus becoming an ace, a pilot with 5 or more victories. By that time, Roy was recognized as a leader as well as a competent pilot, and in September was recommended for the Distinguished Service Cross. In November 1917, Roy returned to Canada on home leave, an opportunity to spend time with his family and friends before leaving for overseas on January 29, 1918, this time sailing on the Justitia, a ship nearly torpedoed on Roy's return trip, but was ultimately sunk later in the war. Promoted to acting flight commander, Roy was now flying only the Sopwith Camel, flying at least 2 combat missions a day and adding to his combat victories. On April 1, 1918, the Royal Naval Air Service and the Royal Flying Corps formed the Royal Air Force, and Roy became a captain in RAF 209 Squadron. A few days later, his high school friend, Wap May, joined Brown's flight, and less than 2 weeks later, the 2 pilots would be involved in one of the most famous air battles of the First World War. On April 21, Wap May was pursued by Baron Manfred von Richthofen in his Red Fokker triplane, when Roy Brown in turn fired at the German pilot. The Red Baron was brought down, ending the life of the enemy's deadliest pilot, an event portrayed many times in paintings and stories, and in a mural on a building in Roy's hometown of Carleton Place, Ontario. Roy's wartime service soon ended, and returning to Canada, he married Edith Moneypenny in Toronto. The couple had a son, Donald, and two daughters, Barbara and Margaret, who served with the RCAF during the Second World War. In 1928, Roy became a pioneer in Canadian aviation, incorporating General Airways Limited. The company began flying from Quebec to serve remote mining companies in Quebec and Ontario. By 1935, the company was operating 4 bases in Quebec and 1 in Ontario. 7 aircraft were in service carrying freight and passengers to remote points as far as Flin Flon, Manitoba, and providing scheduled service to Winnipeg. During the Depression, even though General Airways had enjoyed financial success, eventually it became unprofitable and ceased operating in March 1940. Roy's next venture was to purchase a rundown farm near Stouffville, Ontario, turning it into a profitable business. Wap May and Roy Brown kept in touch over the years, last seeing each other in 1938. On March 9, 1944, at the age of 50, this war hero who built an airline died at his farm home at Stouffville. Arthur Roy Brown was inducted as a member of Canada's Aviation Hall of Fame at ceremonies held on June 4, 2015.